Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Peach State Payments, Recover, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue BA, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting the sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 687 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
Today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Max Moore. If you want to hear his stories about how he grew up in a chiropractic family, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. Today I have Max Moore on with me. I'm going to do a brief introduction of our chiropractic why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle. But we're going to talk about some really cool stuff that Max is involved in, and that is the lessons he's learned in the past 4 years of practice. Coming from a chiropractic family, that will be probably the first segment that we cover of his chiropractic story. And really positive messages and how it affects all outcomes, no matter what we're involved in, why it is important to stay positive with the things that we think and the motivations that we have. And we're going to talk about how he's helping with Cal Chiro in the Bay Area in his region. So as we open up this interview, I just do it the same way every time. I let people know the big why do we do it? Well, first things first is freedom of speech. As people know, we know what it's like to be traffic throttled, shadow banned, and censored. We used to have 100 people at a time jumping on these Facebook lives. Now I'm lucky if I have 10. Okay. So the truth is there. We believe in freedom of speech big time. So we'd never censor you either. There's never been anybody we've ever not published as an episode. So it's pretty cool. Medical freedom and family health freedom, they're not the same things. We believe that everybody deserves to have access to making decisions for autonomy. If you need those leaders in your life, go find a chiropractor in your neighborhood. They'll be sure to help you out. Philosophically speaking, we support BJ Palmer's last words. That is a sacred trust. If you don't know what that is, go to the show notes, check it out. You're going to learn a whole lot about chiropractic that you might not have known previously. And we do believe in subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, universal intelligence. I know that we shouldn't have to front load it with that message, but we do because they're taking that lexicon and that language out of the chiropractic colleges. So if you know a chiropractic student or a young DC that needs the message of philosophy in their life, share the show with them so they get access to the real deal chiropractic conversation. We do believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And that creates educated intelligence. So innate equals universal equals out to educated. And with that, this is a world of intelligence. And this is episode 687. This is Max Moore. Welcome to the show.
James, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate what you do. You're a huge beacon of light for the chiropractic profession. So thank you for everything you do for us, man.
Yeah, to me, it's an honor. 16 years in the game, and I find that it's necessary to have people supporting the truth of chiropractic because a lot of times people are just stuck in the trenches, are in practice full time, and they're focused on practice building, taking care of their community, and the big idea only exists in the four walls of their practice. So it does take a lot of us to go out there and to share the story. So open up your story. How did you get involved in the chiropractic profession?
So I'm a chiro kid. I have both my parents are both chiropractors. And so that's been all my life, man. It's been something I was born with, something I've been raised with. And, I was always something I was interested in. And I've been getting adjusted since I was a baby. And, I went through the typical chiropractic medical field in the sense that I was, never, I wasn't immunized as a child. I was given healthy foods. Anytime I was getting sick, I'd get adjusted. I would feel better. I was given, natural supplements as a child growing up. And I was a kid who just didn't miss school, man. I was in school. I was never sick. I was feeling great. All my friends were getting injuries and having, illnesses. And I was the one who was there pretty much all the time. Anytime I took time off of school, it was just for a vacation more so than anything. And I just have to give it to my parents for really setting me up to succeed like that. And I really didn't have a full appreciation of what they do until I went to chiropractic school myself and learned from the teachers there. And from there, I was calling them every week, telling them all the great things I was learning, and they were excited for me. Eventually, it turned out to be after graduating, I started working with them, and they still practice in the same location after 37 years. And I've been working with them for about 4 years ever since graduating. So that's my story through that. Through that time, there's been milestones where, getting, having my first adjustment that really changed me was actually from a teacher at school. And then the second milestone was just being able to give an adjustment to someone else who's changed their life. There's something that is to be said about these milestone adjustments in your life. Sometimes people remember it's their first adjustment. Sometimes it's the first adjustment that got them out of pain, or sometimes it's that first adjustment that really unlocked something mentally or spiritually in them that made it so that they could live their life healthier and happier. And so I have those milestones too that have kind of guided me towards what I do today and where I'm at. So, but it all starts from the beginning, man. It all starts as from an infant, from a toddler, from a child. And I was just lucky enough to have a family that supported me in that way.
So BJ Palmer wrote this thing called The Big Idea. And I think about that a lot when I think about chiropractic families. I think about BJ Palmer's utopia and the big idea when it comes to, checking babies at birth and getting checked and adjusted as necessary throughout your entire life. My big question is, how do you think it would transform the culture that we have today as if everybody were adjusting their kids at birth and everybody was getting care like you have had your entire life?
Like I said, man, I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have until I got older and I got into practice. And I think it might be the same thing where people just kind of take for granted sometimes their health. One of my favorite quotes is, you don't feel health until you don't have it. Right. And sadly, that's true for a lot of people. But I think globally and socially, what we would experience is, people being healthier, having less time off of school, less time off of work because of sick days and not feeling well. I think socially, economically, these impacts would be felt. Individually, they might be felt as well, but people tend to take their health for granted, unfortunately. But I want to, express with this podcast is just keeping the positive thoughts and keeping negativity out of the rhetoric, because that's one of the things that also contributes to people's, illnesses. We talk about, traumas, toxins, and thoughts, thoughts being a huge aspect of how subluxations occur. And I just think that I would think socially there would be a very great impact if everyone had some sort of chiropractic care at a young age. And individually too, some people would experience great benefit. Other people would experience mild benefit, but overall, I think it would be a really wonderful thing to see.
Well, I think we have a lot of stigma to still hurdle over when it comes to the chiropractic profession in the mainstream world. I know that socio-political is a huge aspect of that, and knowing who governs the way that people take care of their families. So that's why I urge people at the beginning of our show to find a chiropractor and to go for medical health freedom and family health freedom, because those things are essential. And I do believe that if people were to find chiropractic at a younger age for their families, there'd be less dependency on the sick care model. And not saying that chiropractic is the healthcare model, but chiropractic is a whole different paradigm. It's a paradigm shift that I think, got adopted into the medical paradigm because nobody wanted it to be so standalone. And they're like, well, we have to find out a way to control what they do. So now we're going to do that in a way that includes them into the medical profession. But chiropractic has never been a part of the medical profession. So it is interesting to see how people intermingle and the stigmas that are around the profession, and how just basic, if people took care of their spine and nervous systems from the first breath of their life all the way through their development years to where they go into middle age and then later in their life, they just have better quality of life. And that's really why I've taken it on to support the profession, because it is a very misunderstood group, and healers need support. And I do believe that chiropractors can heal the world and heal the nation, but we have to get the message out to more people and really kill the stigma.
I 100% agree, James. And I listened to your podcast with Dr. Nick Athens recently. One thing that you both discussed, which I found was fascinating, was what are you doing for yourself now isn't affecting what you're doing today. It's affecting what you're going to be like in 10 years, right? What you do now, whatever habits you have, however you're thinking, whatever you're eating, it's affecting you now in a sense, but really it's giving you change for the future and what you're going to be like 10, 15 years down the road. I see so many patients who are older and really thriving because of what they did in the past. And then at the same time, other side of the coin, I see patients who, might not even be as old, but they just lived an unhealthy lifestyle and they're suffering the consequences because of it. So just want to kind of reiterate what you're saying. What you do now, it has rippling effects,
Yeah, who you are today is a story of what you're doing over the next decade. And the next decade is who you are today. It's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago or today? What you said earlier, there's a roundabout quote for that is, I believe it's, a man that has his health has a million dreams. A man that doesn't has one. And I think that that's fundamental when it comes to this idea of chiropractic. Like, people don't have to go see a chiropractor, and a lot of them don't. As we know, statistically, 90% of people don't go see a chiropractor. But the ones that do, they understand that it's a quality of life profession rather than I'm going to save you or fix you type profession. And problem is that most people come in as the port of entry because they need somebody to save or fix them. They're not coming to it for quality of life purposes. But the ones that stay in chiropractic care, those are the ones that see that it's a quality of life profession, and they got through that troubled time as they originally became, part of the chiropractic world. So then they understand, like, hey, if I do this now for the rest of my life, I might not get back to the crisis moment that I came in with. And, a lot of times I talk to people out there in the community and I'm like, so, have you, seen a chiropractor before? They're like, well, if I come to the chiropractor once, don't I have to come for the rest of my life? And, I have that conversation all the time. And I'm like, look, it's a blessing if you could come for the rest of your life. Like, it's not like you said, we need to speak more positivity. Well, yeah, this is the best positive message I can give anybody. It's a blessing for you to be able to come in and get your spine checked and adjusted and corrected and have your nervous system functioning optimally through the specific detection and correction of vertebral subluxation from a chiropractor. What a blessing. But people think that they've done something wrong. Now I have to go do this. So we need a correction on the thought process of when people actually receive care from a chiropractor. And it's almost like we have to start over almost and get back to the basics of saying, look, it's not about your pain. It's how do we help with the thoughts, traumas, and toxins, physical, chemical, and emotional stresses. And then we're speaking their language.
Exactly. I love that. Absolutely, man.
So local community, how are you staying connected? I know that you're doing some stuff with the local chapter of Cal Chiro. How's that been going for you?
It's going really well. Thank you for asking there, James. So I'm the local president of the San Mateo Cal Chiro district within the larger organization of Cal Chiro itself. And our goal really is to promote community within our small county area. And how we've been doing that is through local events in the sense of we do continuing education events. We also do networking events, and we try to involve students as well. We're lucky that we have Life West, which is a college in Hayward, which is just across the bridge from us, about 20 minutes away. So as much as we can involve them, we're trying to bring in students so that they can network with doctors in our area. And, you know, chiropractors tend to be these kind of lone wolf type of creatures. You know, we really like to do it on our own, and it's a little frustrating sometimes because, you know, there's such knowledge locked in some of these older doctors and some of these, you know, practitioners who've been doing it for years, that it can get lost sometimes. And my biggest fear is having those doctors who've had training with, you know, the likes of George Goodhart and Clay Thompson and all these amazing doctors who've passed on. That knowledge needs to get transferred over to people like myself and people like you know, the students who are graduating next. So trying to get these networks together, trying to get community in our local county, and then just trying to have fun too. You know, we've found that, you know, we've been doing a lot of CE events, and it tends to draw a certain crowd, but the more people come to these more community events where we go to a, you know, bowling, or we go to a brewery, or we do something kind of with you know, more of a community mindset. And so we're trying to transition more into those type of events where we involve more fun activities and more networking rather than just sitting at a desk learning about a specific topic. But the whole goal is to boost community, overall boost membership in our grander organization of Cal Chiro itself, because those are the ones who are really putting in the work to promote and bring chiropractic to the forefront legislatively. So they're trying to, you know, draw bills and promote legislation that is pro-chiropractic so that we can succeed financially and socially in the state of California.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Peach State Payments, Recover, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue BA, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting the sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle. You know, you said some really important things there. You know, I was just at an event this past weekend with a bunch of chiropractors, and I was like, well, you know, when I get a chance to connect with a group of chiropractors, I say, look, all I ask you to do is make a list of every chiropractor in your community. Like you saw this at my talk. I said, make a list of all the chiropractors in your community, reach out to them, like get adjusted. Like what a concept, a chiropractor connecting with another chiropractor to get adjusted. Pretty cool. It's not always a competition out there. You can actually get people that are going to take care of you, and you can reciprocate with care. I said, have coffee with people, have lunch with people, have a dinner with people, go bowling. Like you said, go check out a brewery, like build a community around chiropractic and know that you guys are all in this together, and that the profession is profoundly stronger when you guys unite rather than, you said, like this lone wolf mentality. Like it's better together. Just FYI, everybody out there watching this that will watch this later, find a local community. And if there's not a philosophy group in your network and in your community, start one. Start fellowship. Even if one person comes and it's just you and one other person, hey, you did something positive and you got people together. And then, you know, every event that I go to, I urge everybody, next time, bring a friend with you, bring 2 friends with you, because that's the way that the community grows. And as I go out and do the work that I do, boots on the ground, I realize, Max, that most people are curious, but they want to be invited into something. They want to be a part of a community. They want to be a part of something. That's why practices grow the way that they do. And a chiropractor's on fire. That's why chiropractic practices start to multiply quickly, because people want to be a part of something that has community roots, and that is, it's a fun place to be. So they tell their friends and family. So I think we're onto something here.
Absolutely, James. And you know, you nailed it on the head, totally with you. You're being boots on the ground. You're a grassroots effort kind of person. You go to these spinal events, as you're screening patients at these, farmers markets and events. And that is really, truly the best way to get people involved. I always try to write a handwritten letter to people who are new members to thank them for being part of our profession, or a phone call. Because a lot of times too much is we get overwhelmed and inundated with text messages and emails and non-personalized mail that we just kind of, I get it as I'm human too, man. I get overwhelmed with this stuff. And if I get notified about something exciting in my neighborhood, I'm most likely to miss it because it's not targeted to me. It's not specific to me. We have to make it into a personalized approach. We have to make it into a grassroots effort. And you are like totally the man for that. Like, you've done some incredible work, boots on the ground, hands-on patients. And I think that is the way to build a practice, and also the way to build an organization. So having those, it's so important for what we're doing. And it's something that, as I transitioned into president, something that I tried to involve with my organization team to get our, more of a hands-on and specific approach to marketing and just letting people know who we are, what we do. Otherwise, people aren't going to know who we are, what we do,
Well, Max, a lot of times people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that when you invite people in and you give them a handwritten letter, they might even forget what was in the letter, right. But they won't forget the connection that they felt when you made that attempt to connect with them.
And I think perfect analogy to chiropractic. The patient might not necessarily remember what you said during their first visit. They might not even remember what they paid with that first visit, but they'll remember how they felt after leaving that office, right? They're going to remember how that adjustment felt and how that changed their body and their nervous system. So what a perfect analogy, man.
So let's future pace a little bit. Look in the crystal ball. How do you see chiropractic developing over the next 2 decades?
Man, I just see it onward and upward, man. And I've been able to be blessed by being in the association, in this chiropractic association for the state of California. So I've been able to see what doctors look like after 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years in practice, and seeing their evolution, and then seeing how I personally am on this journey right behind them. And then from my perspective, also looking back at the students and seeing where they're coming from as well, and how they're excited to be on that journey too. There's definitely a lot within the state of California specifically, and specifically in the Bay Area, there's been a bit of kind of poo-pooing on the profession because we've had, unfortunately, one of the schools close recently, and that's happening within the next few months. A lot of people are looking at that as a sign of negativity towards the profession because there's not going to be as many students. But I actually see that as a sign of potential growth because even though there's going to be one less school, it's going to drive traffic still to this other school that we have that's across the bay, and also hopefully get those students an increased amount of fellow classmates. Hopefully those class numbers will grow because of it. And the more people you have in a classroom, the more jazzed and spizz they get for chiropractic. I went to school, there was only about 20 students in my class. That's pretty low. When my parents were at the same school that I went to, it was about 80. So that's a huge difference. But if we can get to those larger class sizes and get people excited and interacting with each other, I think that's going to draw the profession in a forward progress, and hopefully get the philosophy as well kind of more ingrained in the students' in their minds. I went to a school that was fairly low on philosophy. I mean, I got a great education there. I really thought school prepared me very well for boards, and that's kind of what their goal was, to get me to pass boards. But the philosophy for me came in later, man. That came in through Cal Chiro, came in through interacting with the chiropractors that my parents know, and interacting with them specifically too. So, and it's also been a part of my life from an early age. So that wasn't too much of a transition for me, but still, I'm hoping, like you said earlier, man, the students get that philosophy in their in their curriculum, or even just within themselves, or by going to some local events where they might not get exposed to it at school, but they get to expose themselves through other means. But to answer your question, man, chiropractic, onwards and upwards, man. We're going up. We're going places.
So fundamentally, I like to go back to the basics. I don't believe a chiropractor ever becomes a real chiropractor until they have a baseline of philosophy. Like, they can become the greatest adjuster in the world, but if they don't know long-term while they're doing it, they won't stick with it. So I think we do need to get these students into philosophy early. And I know that they're not really leaning into that as a huge, transition. We're actually transitioning away from that in the curriculums. So we do need to bring in external speakers and hold workshops, not only philosophy workshops on these campuses and outside of school or whatever it might be, but we need to get adjusting technique seminars going on around the schools. So confidence of adjusting and philosophy are two of the baselines, the basic skills and knowledge base that I believe chiropractors need to develop before they can ever become like a full fundamental based chiropractor. Otherwise, they're just going to be, little lost. And we can't have lost chiropractors out there. We need them to be fundamentally strong to where they keep their convictions strong, to where they practice a long time, and then once again mentor the future chiropractors. So with that, who would you say besides your parents have been some of your greatest mentors?
Oh, great question. There's been a few teachers at the school that I went to who really put me forward. Dr. Nook is one of them. He's a great sports chiropractor, and he's from Iowa, but he practiced actually a good part of his life in Australia, and he's kind of brought the whole chiropractic profession to that country. And then he came back to the States to teach at my school, and he's actually the one I'd say affected me in kind of a different way than most teachers would, because he's the one who gave me that aha moment through an adjustment. I was talking earlier in the podcast about, I find that there's two kind of pivotal milestone adjustments. The first one that you get that changes your life, and the first one that you give that changes someone else's life. And he was actually, even though I've been adjusted by my parents my whole life, he was the one who gave me my first life-changing adjustment. And it was actually a TMJ adjustment. I've been suffering from jaw pain at that point for probably 6 months after an injury. And it was the first time I cried during adjustment, and because I had no pain after, and it was one of the most incredible experiences in my life. So I would give him definitely I have to give him a head on the Mount Rushmore of my favorite chiros because of that one. As well, I did some practice management work with a chiropractor in Los Gatos. His name's Dr. Brant Pedersen, and he does an incredible job managing an all cash practice. And that's the goal for me as well, to kind of maintain an all cash practice as well. And he's marketing, and his philosophy on business is one of the best I've seen as far as chiropractors go. And also, I have to give Meg Spicer a huge shout out. She's the past president for the San Mateo Chiropractic district, and she's put me on to some amazing ideas, and she's introduced me to some incredible people. And she's a really incredible force for the chiropractic profession, certainly within the state, but also within the entire profession nationally and globally. And she has incredible energy to her that is very contagious. So I'm going to give it to those three as far as Mount Rushmore. And I'll kind of chisel in my parents on that fourth one too.
Well, it's cool that you've been able to build relationships with people and find a good path and find good resources and learn from other people too. And I do think that we should have a core group of people that are mentors to us that we learn from. And I do think that, leadership is one of those things that we develop into. So it is cool for you to recognize Meg, because I know she's worked really hard to build a community out there, like we were talking about earlier, bringing people together, getting people to have fellowship, and supporting each other, not just because we're going to go in there and puff our chests out and talk about numbers, but it's a lonely world out there if you don't build a community. So it's pretty cool that you found some good people, including mentors for business, mentors for leadership, and people that have changed your life through the adjustment. So it's really, really awesome. Closing out, I know that you shared the miracle story about your jaw. Now let's talk about something that you've seen in 4 years of your practice. Share a miracle story to give these people that watch some hope moving forward.
I would love to, man. I would love to. There's at this point, you said, there's you don't have a favorite podcast. They're all your favorite. They're all your babies. I can't really pick a favorite, miracle adjustment. At this point, I've only been practicing for 4 years, but there's definitely a few that stand out. I'll just narrow it down to one. It's a bit of a wind up of a story, so I'll kind of get into that here. So I'll let you know that I practice with my parents, which has been fantastic. But I also practice a little on the side at a pain management clinic, where I'm treating mostly workers' compensation patients who have been injured working construction jobs, gardening jobs, a lot of manual labor, a lot of police and fire. They get injured on the job, and I'm the only chiropractor there in a sea of medical doctors. And I remember this one patient. She's used to work as a police officer, got injured on the job, has had neck and back pain ever since for about 2-3 years now. And the specific doctor that she sees at this pain management clinic tends to be a little bit of a negative mindset with patients, what I've seen, which can affect their outcomes. A lot of these doctors, they'll not only prescribe medications that are toxins, but also they will talk to their patients in a way that is negative, which adds to their thoughts, right? So that's just 2 out of the 3 on the trauma toxins thoughts spectrum that they're getting hit by, right? So this patient's been taking medications for a few years now, no help at all. Her doctor is demeaning her every time that she visits them. And I love that I get to introduce chiropractic to these patients who don't afford it they can't afford it themselves. They probably would never been exposed to a chiropractor in their life if it wasn't for seeing me. And I'm lucky that I get a chance to introduce that profession to these people. And so she sees me, first adjustment, immediately starts crying on the table because she has never felt that way before. She's never been out of pain for the last 3 years in her neck or her back. She didn't know that she could feel that way anymore. She thought that she was going to be on pain medications her whole life because that's what she was told by her doctor. And it really emphasized the point that I try to inspire hope in patients. I try to give them positive thoughts. I try to, give them as much compliments about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I try to encourage that, because on the other side of the field, there's so much negativity. No matter if you give the patient the right treatment or not, they're still going to probably not have the best outcome because they don't feel it themselves. They don't believe it themselves that they can get better. If you tell someone that they can get better and then you make them better, that's eliminating so much barrier to health that it really shows, and it can create these incredible miracle experiences and adjustments for these patients. So, that's just one of probably a dozen that I've experienced in the last 4 years of practice. But that's the one that really sticks out in my mind because it really addresses the entirety of what we do, not just the adjustment, but the entirety of the experience of seeing a chiropractor.
Well, I think so much goes into case management of when you get in to work with these types of workers' compensation patients, that there's no real collaboration effort, I don't think, when it comes to accepting a chiropractic into the treatment paradigm. And the thing is that I always tell people, if we just went reverse and we start with chiropractic first, a lot of the other types of practitioners and interventions wouldn't be as necessary. And a chiropractor should be the one that gets the patient first and then can make recommendations to different types of therapies and care if, once again, the adjustment isn't enough. And I do know that there is, in philosophy, limitations of matter, and you are going to find people that are pretty beat up and injured, that it's going to take a little bit more time to get people back to feeling better and performing better. But I do think that if the medical world thought about chiropractic more towards the first 1, 2, 3 punch, instead of the 5, 6, 7 punch, we wouldn't be like 40th in the world and health performance outcomes. And we could start trickling back towards a more at least in the top 10 of health performance scores within the global rankings. And we see what's happening right now is it's not quite effective. And we know that we need to course correct pretty quickly if we're going to regain health in this nation again. So I think your miracle story is spot on. There are a lot of people that need care. They just don't know where to go or who to trust. And the medical profession has to rewrite the path of least resistance first to where chiropractors are getting selected first in these types of case management performance outcome patients, because we need those people back on the job. And it's not an ego thing. It's how quickly can we get people better faster? And if we can get people better faster and back on the job, everybody benefits. The GDP benefits, the professional benefits, and the collaboration effort benefits. So I think you're spot on, man. Like when you get into a situation like that where there is a hierarchy and chiropractors are just a part of that symposium of, I guess, doctors, we need to make sure that we do a better job at getting chiropractic first. And if I could ever impress upon anybody, try chiropractic first. And
Absolutely.
You never know what the miracle might be. You might have everybody crying because they're like, dang, I didn't know I could feel this good.
Right. Absolutely. And you're spot on in the sense that the outcome measurements don't necessarily show the full picture. I being in these double practices where I work at this pain management clinic, but I also work with my parents. At my parents' office, we see the people who have just recently been injured, and their first doctor they're seeing is me, and their outcomes are amazing. They get better so fast, and they don't have to see me ever again because they're great. We'd love to see them again, but they just don't need it anymore because they're doing fantastic. Versus being here, the patient's been injured for 4 or 5 years, and at that point they've already had multiple medications thrown at them. They've had multiple surgeries. They've had multiple injections, and I'm just kind of the guy they say, let's just see if this works. Let's just throw it at this guy. And at that point, you're not going to get great outcomes. They've already, been poked and prodded and cut open and slapped around the medical system, and they're just tired, man. They're just exhausted of having to go to doctor's appointments. These guys, they're working, they were working 5 days a week at a job, and now they're 5 days a week going to doctor's appointments. And that's a whole different, full-time job right there. And they'd rather work. They'd rather be working and making money for their families and not going to doctor's appointments and being told you're never going to get better. So it is so important to see a chiropractor as soon as you can get it, as soon as you can. If you have an injury, you got to go see a chiropractor first, and let them make the right decision for you.
Well, one of the reasons I love chiropractic, and this is a quote from Les Brown, is he says, it doesn't cut it out, drug it out, or burn it out. And chiropractors, first thing that they do will adjust. And I think that that's very fundamental once again, and it can save a lot of people's lives as if we go least invasive first. And let's not cut it out, drug it out, or burn it out. It's not about pills, potions, and lotions. It's about the innate intelligence, and it's about universal intelligence and what becomes educated intelligence. And you don't get that without the chiropractic adjustment. So, Dr. Max, I appreciate you being on episode 687 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. Is there anything you'd like to close out with?
First of all, James, I want to give you your flowers, man. You've been an excellent force for the profession, and what you do on the daily is incredible, man. Your energy is fantastic. If any other chiropractors watching this, highly recommend reach out to James. Go to his website, chirohustle.com. Check out the podcast. They're really excellent. If you're ever feeling down, you feel like you're not doing great, you feel like you're not the best chiropractor you can be, first things first, just watch a podcast episode. It's going to get you super, super jazzed. And then second of all, just join your state association, whether you're here in California or elsewhere. That is a huge important process to support and invest in yourself by investing in your state association. They're fighting the fight so that you can practice the way you do without limitations and restrictions. So make sure that you look up whatever state association you're in and become a member, or at least consider giving a donation, because like I said, it's investing in yourself and that's the best investment you can make. So James, thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Well, I'll be on the road this week going to Denver, Colorado to be a part of the Chiropractic Congress event. And I'm going to be meeting with all the executive directors of all the state associations this next weekend to help them with the same thing that I did at Cal Chiro, is get up there as a non-DC and tell the chiropractic story and connect with the audience and help more people understand this profession. So I appreciate you being on with us today, Dr. Max, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And as soon as I'm out to the Bay Area, I'll let you know.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, I'll close out like I always do. You guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.